Namaste, my friends. Welcome to Jack Colley's Black Book, episode number 37. We're coming out of episode 36, where we looked at symbols and how limiting symbols can be. And we specifically looked at babies on runways dressed like Jesus being crucified. So if you did not have a chance to watch episode 36, where you will have the incredible opportunity to see a picture of AI taking toddlers walking down like a fashion runway dressed as Jesus being crucified. I mean, talk about a messed up symbol. Please do that, because we're going to continue kind of in that vein. The difference is, instead of looking at what something is not, for this episode, we're going to take a look at something that is. What are the metrics that define something that is closer to God, is closer to some of these religious figures? And here's the thing. I like the way the Bible put it. Again, Rabbi Jesus puts it as you can judge a tree by its fruit. So if you look at an individual and you know what kind of fruit is being produced in their life, you can make a pretty good judgment with respect to what type of tree they are. Now, we're not talking about, again, we're not talking ever, I'm never talking about judging a person's value, judging a person's worth. We're taking a look at what kind of system can we use to evaluate. And last time it was evaluating symbols. Now it is evaluating humans in our lives. Not in terms of their intrinsic value, but in terms of their trajectory, in terms of their life, in terms of, is this somebody I want to engage or don't want to engage? Those types of metrics that it's very important that we do. We have been created, or we have been evolved to judge and make judgments about other individuals. It's something that we have to do, but I believe that we have to have the right framework so that we're doing that in a healthy way for ourselves and for others. And so the Bible uses this idea of judging a tree by its fruit. That is, when you look at an individual, what kind of fruit is being produced in their lives. And we can use that as a way to evaluate where this person is. What's interesting about the tree and the fruit, what's interesting about taking this approach, is that the only way you are going to be able to identify the fruit in another person's life is to have a relationship with them. This is key to everything I'm going to say here, I think, in this particular episode, is that in order to judge a person's life, in order to judge a tree by its fruit, you have to have a relationship with that person. And if you don't have a relationship with that person, if you haven't been with that person in relationship for some time, you really don't have an idea of what kind of fruit is being produced in their life, because the production of fruit in a plant is seasonal. There's a pattern, there's a rhythm to it. It keeps coming up, or in some cases, if the tree is not producing fruit, it keeps not coming up, or the wrong type of fruit keeps being produced every season. So we judge trees by their fruit. And the only way to evaluate what kind of fruit we are engaging, what kind of tree we're engaging, is to have a systematic seasonal relationship with an individual. So the metric, the fruit, or the metrics that I am going to suggest are going to be, in a sense, soft skills. They're going to be things that cannot be measured. So we're not going to be dealing in the world of hard skills. And what I mean by that is I'm going to continue to suggest that just because you see two people praying over their food at a restaurant, that does not make them necessarily Christian. It doesn't mean that they're producing good fruit. All that means is that you observe them for 15 seconds praying over their meal. Or if somebody passes you on the road, I saw this the other day, the back of a pickup truck, it said, what did it say? I stand for the flag and I kneel for the cross. 15 seconds. I can't make a judgment as to the driver's fruit based on those 15 seconds, even though that tailgate rap just said, really communicated a lot. You have to have a relationship to see the pattern of the fruit, a seasonal relationship. Now, I'm going to use 3 different areas. So I'm going to take this idea that you judge a tree by its fruit, and I'm going to take 3 different areas. Number 1, I'm going to start with the fruits of the Spirit. So this is it Galatians? It's like, I think Galatians 5, maybe Galatians 15. I think it's Galatians 5, has this section called the fruits of the Spirit. That if you have the Spirit, if you have God, that one indication of the fruit that you are going to produce is that the fruit will look like this. And there are several, let's just say, types of fruit that will be produced. And then from there, we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 13. And in 1 Corinthians 13, that's the section on love or charity, like what is love and what is charity. So love is this, love is this, love is this, or charity sometimes it's called. So those two seem to me to be appropriate metrics. Like if a person is producing these fruits in their life, we can identify the tree by those fruits. And then I also decided to look at the Beatitudes, because I think the Beatitudes are also these excellent metrics of who is going to get it and who is not going to get it. And the Beatitudes are the ones that, like are blessed are the peacemakers, blessed, blessed, blessed. Now, I do want to be careful because, the word blessing, it's another one of those words that has incredibly deep meaning, and it's a word that should be respected. When you talk about God's blessing, or when you talk about an individual's blessing, you talk about a covenant, you talk about a relationship with this word blessed. And I'm going to go off on a little tangent here, because I think this is another word that through our own ignorance, we've just cheapened this word. This word has become so cheap. And I think we need to critique it. I think when I hear an individual say, oh, I have been so blessed to be given that, God has blessed me with this house. The critic in me wants to say, okay, so are you saying every, individuals that don't have a house, what, have they been cursed by God? Is that what I'm to understand? Or we say the blessing over the food, oh, thank you for blessing us with this food. So what does that mean? Those without food have been cursed? It's just a word that almost, I don't know, it gets thrown around so much that it's just kind of like, it's like, how much can you say you're blessed? And, it's almost like, I don't know, I almost interpret it as people having this idea that, God has somehow looked on you with favor more than most of the world. I just have trouble with that. So anyway, when we get to the Beatitudes, when I say blessing, I want you to see that it has nothing to do with homes or blessing food, when you really look at the Beatitudes and what they're talking about. Now, in order to do this, I'm sorry, my eye is really burning here, but in order to do this, I made a slide where it magically, every time you hit click, it magically makes another word. I know most of you know PowerPoint, and you probably understand how to do this much more easily than myself, but sometimes I'm very easily impressed. So here is my magic slide. It's black right now. And we're going to start with the fruits of the Spirit. And as these come up, in fact, I think I'm going to make this the whole screen. As these come up, I want you to notice that you're not going to be able to recognize these in people unless you have a relationship. And I also want you to notice that this list has nothing to do with how much you pray. It has nothing to do with if you went to temple, if you went to church. It has nothing to do with you worshiping on the mountain. It has nothing to do with how often you pray. It has nothing to do with things that can be seen. All of these things, I think I can say, all of these things can only be experienced by other people who are in relationship with you. And these are the fruits that we have to look at. So let's take a look at these here. So here's the black screen. Here we go, the magic. So we're going to start with, I I believe these are the fruits of the Spirit. And I'm not going to talk much about these. I think I'm just going to reveal them a little bit, and I'll say them out loud. Fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, kindness, gentleness, self-control. I think that's all of those. Yep. And as I'm revealing these, compare this to American culture. Think about what we really celebrate and what we love as Americans, which is power, and we're islands unto ourselves, and we have this. You kind of know what I'm talking about here. And yet look at this particular list of fruits. So in green here, this is the 1 Corinthians 13, I believe. So love is patient, kind, does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, does not dishonor, is not self-seeking, is not easily angered, keeps no records of wrong, does not delight in evil, protects, trusts, hopes, perseveres. Again, think about the list. Think about typically what we do with nationalism, because, and I realize it seems like I'm always coming back to this, and that's partially because I think that this idea that we can keep one foot in nationalism and one foot in our religion, I think I think every major religion would have a problem with that, with this idea that somehow, your religion is tied to your nationality. I just have a problem with that. In fact, I would say if you look at the individuals that Christ, I think, was rather disgusted with, they were individuals who they espoused to having these this spiritual fruit in their lives, but then they acted in a completely different way. It's almost like they had one foot in nationalism and one foot in Christianity, and I think that the individuals that Jesus was really against had almost these internal inconsistencies, like they were internally conflicted. It was like you could look at their lives and you could see, oh, you're saying this, but you're doing this, and it doesn't even make sense, and you're trying to make it work, and it doesn't work. So anyway, here's the Beatitudes, and this is where you get the blessed. And understand that you're not going to hear the Beatitudes, blessed are the individuals who have the nice house. Blessed are the individuals who have their family. Blessed are, as if God has somehow looked down on you and not other people in the world. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those that mourn. Blessed are the meek. Those who thirst for righteousness. Those who are merciful. Those who are peacemakers. Oh, and there's Kali again, because that's coming up in a minute here, but I didn't expect to go quite that far. Let me go back here. Oh, good. My list is still there. Now look at this list. If you are going to judge a tree by its fruit, this is what you're looking for. I would venture to say that if you want to evaluate if you are on a path, if you will, toward understanding, that you're probably going to have these fruits being developed in your life. I also think it's safe to say that as you look at this list, if you have things in your life that don't quite line up with these, that would indicate that you're not producing the right fruit. When I look at this list, when I look for fruit in a person's life, if I see a person who says, I pray and I read the Bible and I go to church, but then they lose their temper, they don't have self-control, they do damage, they have their weapons, etc., etc., etc. When I look at a tree like that, I can't make sense of what I'm looking at. And it's a tree that I probably don't want to pick the fruit off of and eat of. But when I look at this tree, when I look at this fruit on the slide, I can look at that and I can say, people who exhibit these characteristics, I think we would all consider these are good individuals. And yet all of these characteristics have really nothing to do with what you do, the motions you go through, your practices, things like that. It more has to do with your attitude, how you're wired. It's things that people say about you, who know you, who have been in relation with you. And so these are the fruits that I think you should look at. So if you have to evaluate a person, look at these fruits. What fruit are you seeing? If you're seeing these things, it seems to me that we can draw the conclusion that we're dealing with somebody whose trajectory is toward an understanding and a lifestyle of good. I think I'm going to leave off there. And we are going to change gears a little bit for the next episode, but I think for right now, that's what I would like to say for now. All right. Namaste, my friends.